Good evening, everybody. The Music Fan is here bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. And I am back with another edition of Are You In? This time I'll be looking at Mike Shinoda's newest album entitled Post-Traumatic. Now, you probably heard me talk about a lot of Mike Shinoda over the last few months, if you will, with his work with Linkin Park as well as with Fort Minor. But if you need a refresher on who he is a American music singer, songwriter, rapper, record producer, and graphic designer from Panorama City, California. So, like I said, he's worked with Linkin Park. He is well known for his hip hop side project Fort Minor, as well as co-founding the Machine Shop Records, which was used in a lot of Linkin Park albums as the recording studio. I have loved a lot of Linkin Park, as you have clearly seen from the diving through the discography. And when Bennington passed, I was really curious to see what would happen with the rest of the group. And when I heard that Mike Shinoda had made an EP called Post Traumatic, I was curious to see what it was about. And I liked the first three songs. I didn't find them, hugely interesting, but I liked that he was going with a route of trying to use this album as a therapy session, if you will. So when I heard that it was going to be a much grander thing coming out in June, I was going to take a look at it, and it slipped by me for a little bit. There was a lot of other things I wanted to listen to, but I eventually took a listen, and here are my thoughts. This is a very hard album for me to review, not because it's necessarily good or bad, but it's because it's a very personal and a very deep album, just like Year of the Tiger with Miles Kennedy, talking about death and their personal experience with it. But difference with this one, rather than Year of the Tiger, is with Miles Kennedy, it was somebody who was his father, but he barely knew him, and he passed when he was a young kid, and now he's writing an album about him. Compared to Mike Shinoda losing a close friend and a collaborator of creative ideas for 20 years, for having the highs and the lows of that career, as I've talked about over weeks and weeks with the digging through the discography. And this is a culmination of everything that he is feeling and has been feeling over the last year. So for me to call out certain things as being good or bad, I'm not going to necessarily do that. I will say, at least in terms of my personal interest, how I feel about certain things of this album. So from the get-go, I'm going to say the music, for the most part, isn't very memorable. There aren't a lot of amazing tracks. There's a couple of good ones that changed up the feel of this 16-track album. Crossing a Line being a prime example of that, where it has this 6/8 feel and this interesting offbeat guitar part in the chorus, and the fact that it has an interesting piano line where it's a single piano note in the intro with these soft electric beats before everything else comes in. I really enjoy the music of this particular song. Lift Off is another one where it features Machine Gun Kelly and Chino Marino from Deftones, and it kind of definitely feels like a Deftone-y hip-hop sound, especially with Chino Marino. If you know him, he has this very elongated and very raspy voice. It just works so well with him around it, as well as Machine Gun Kelly adding some nice change up in the rapping with this song. It's a very understated arrangement, and I really like it. Running From My Shadow is another one of these ones that isn't as interesting at the beginning, but it works very well at the end when Grandson's parts comes in. Kind of feels a little bit like something from 21 Pilots, but after that, it brings in this very interesting distorted guitar part, and it's really nice, and it adds to this song. you know, before it was just going to be this kind of mediocre sound, and then it works very well at the end for something very, very interesting. Nothing Makes Sense Anymore, another highlight for me, where it's a very understated arrangement, but it's very tense, and it feels like it's going to build, but it never does, which makes for some interesting tension in the song. The melody line is very interesting, the harmonies are cool, there's a lot of overdubbing, but it's really nicely done. Promises I Can't Keep is another one of these where it's not hugely interesting, but the melody is good. About You has some interesting parts at the end, where with this dynamic change in the bridge with Black Bear, the guest artist on there, before some really cool harmonies on the outro, which are electrically tinged, and you can definitely see it in the music video that he creates with it. There are some little bits and pieces of interesting music. For the most part, it's very electronically tinged. It's not necessarily complex on a lot of these, and you know, it's there for a feeling, a state of feeling that he wants, so that he can get his message out. So I can't necessarily criticize him for the music. It's not, you know, it's there, but that's not the purpose of it there. You know, it's nice, but it's the more important things are the lyrics of this album, and it's talking about a lot of very heavy subjects. From the get-go, you get place to start of just trying to find a way to start again after Bennington's death, and then it's, you know, a song like Over Again, where he's talking about the idea of he's not grieving all the time, but he's getting memories of certain things that make him remember Bennington, and then he starts grieving again. So, you know, you don't say goodbye once, you say goodbye over and over and over again. Watching As I Fall is about how other people are grieving around him that never knew Bennington, and yet, you know, no one understands how Shinoda is grieving. Nothing makes sense anymore. Very simple idea of the world doesn't make sense to him anymore. He once felt safe, and now he doesn't understand the world. About You is a song where he's talking about trying to write other music and not having it about Bennington, but somehow it always comes back to him in certain small ways. Promises I Can't Keep is talking about the idea that we all make promises, and maybe one day we won't be able to keep those promises, whether it's, you know, something as simple as never seeing this person again because they live on the opposite side of the world, or something as drastic as losing someone and remembering, oh wait, I promised him to do this or do that, and I never got to keep that promise for that person. Crossing a Line is talking about trying to move on and changing the narrative, but never forgetting the person. Hold It Together is talking about the you know, trying to deal with the hustle and bustle of life, while also still grieving. And this one has some very poignant lyrics about being at a kid's birthday party and trying to enjoy life, and having someone come up to Shinoda and giving condolences and being like, cool, thank you, but I'm trying to live my life, and you bring up something that I don't want to talk about. Ghosts is talking about like the mysteries of life and the entities that we all feel, even though they're not there. Kind of like maybe feeling, you know, Bennington's presence even though he's not there. Make It Up As I Go is talking about trying to hold on and making up life as it goes on, even feeling like you're not in control of the ride. Worlds on Fire is a very sentimental idea of finding comfort and strength through his wife. Running From My Shadow is talking about his past and how his past has affected him, and trying to keep up away from this shadow and trying to be better. Can't Hear You Now is finally the one where it feels like he's starting to understand that he doesn't have to grieve all the time, even though it will always be there. That feeling will always be there. It just doesn't mean that he has to live that life all the time. The only two that feel a little bit different in terms of the lyrical content are Lift Off and IOU, and it's kind of talking about him getting back into the music game because like he needs to make up for all the slackers in the music industry, and it's a nice way of, you know, transitioning out of these ideas a little bit. But at the same time, the majority of this album is about his grieving process, and there's some very poignant lyrics on this album, and it's very interesting to see this. I don't know a lot of albums that deal with this subject so in depth and in a sobering way, just laying it out all out there. And it's very interesting because this is a band that I grew up with, and it's interesting to see what this person is going through. And I understand. I like a lot of these songs hit hard. The idea of trying to live life and never feeling like there's a break to actually grieve. I went through that with my dad. When my dad passed away, there was a sense of that for me as well. The idea of remembering little things and having to say goodbye over and over again, or having people be there for you at the beginning, but knowing that they might not be there down the line while you are still grieving. All these are so tensely talked about, and it makes for a very emotional album. And that's why I don't really criticize the music. It's not necessarily my cup of tea in terms of the stuff. It's a little bit more like One More Light in terms of the electronic feel, and not as interesting arrangements, but at the same time, I'm not there for that. I'm there to listen to his story, and I'm glad that he told it. If I was to criticize anything, there are certain songs, like I talked about with One More Light, I don't think that Shinoda's the best emoter in terms of a singer, nor does he have the range of singing in order to make for always powerful things. He does have some good points on here. On Promises I Can't Keep, he hits very hard. On Nothing Makes Sense Anymore, there's a lot of passion in there, and there's a lot of intense singing in there that you can feel everything that's going on. But there's some of them that don't work as well. I don't think Watching As I Fall works well in terms of his singing. Same thing with Over and Again. There are some of them that just don't work that well. Now, I will say the first 3 songs are the same 3 songs that were on the EP, and it feels different. Like, it feels like, I don't know if he had an idea of making a full album, but these first 3 feel like they were like rough drafts, and then everything else feels a little bit more complex in the arrangement. So if you can get past the first 3, even though they're good songs, if you can get past the first 3, you'll start to hear more diverse sounds. But again, going back to his singing, it's not always the best. His rapping is on point though on a lot of these songs, especially on Over Again, talking about the performance that he was doing for a charity benefit for Bennington, and maybe feeling like he didn't have the strength to actually go through the concert. Places to Start has some good rapping on there as well. About You has some awesome rapping on there. The 2 standouts probably are IOU and Running From My Shadow. The Lift Off also has some good stuff, though it's also a little bit cheesy at time with the lyrics. But he still has it in terms of rapping, and he is getting better as a singer. But all in all, again, you're not coming there for all that. You're coming there for the story, and I think he does well on there. So for me, I don't think I'm going to necessarily listen to this over and over again, but I think it's worth listening to at least once if you were a Linkin Park fan, if you were affected by the death of Bennington, or if you are looking for an interesting topic like this where someone's actually like giving his heart and all of his thoughts about such a tragic event. If you can get past, maybe not the most interesting music, it's a good listen. I don't know if it'll be in my top 50 this year, but again, that's not the point of this album. So thank you for your time. If you did like this album, please give it a like. If you are interested in more of my reviews, subscribe to my channel. Share this with your friends if you think this was good. Comment on albums that you would like me to review or your thoughts on this album as well. And just keep watching my videos. So tomorrow I'll be back with another Are You In? Then Friday I am going to do actually one more album that's kind of associated with Linkin Park as I get ready for the next installment of Digging Through Discography with another band. I won't tell you just yet, but you'll have to wait till Friday till I get to tell you that. And then Sunday I'll be back with another Are You In? Till then, I will see you in the next video. This is the Music Fan signing off.